So he got convicted and executed, and that
Hmm.
was the end of it. Do you think, because a lot of people described rituals, royalty, European royalty participating in these rituals, and political figures and presidents and so on being present at these ceremonies. Do you think he would be someone who they would go to as well? The whole elite, the
He,
whole
he,
world elite?
he would have been included in their pantheon.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They worship the old gods.
Okay.
Olak, Baal, Baphomet,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Dagon.
Dagon is actually a lot like Lovecraft's Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you've got a whole assortment of old gods that all eat humans and all require human sacrifice for their dinner. And if the elites do not follow the rules and sacrifice who they're supposed to, this being can and sometimes does show up at their house and takes what they want.
Okay. And so after Baphomet was executed, do you think they knew that it happened? I mean, down here, the elites?
They knew that their summoning stopped working.
Okay.
They knew that he wasn't showing up to collect the adrenochrome.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was a time frame, I guess about 2 years, that a lot of the celebrity stage, not the old school royals, but the music stars, the actors, producers, those people who had been using adrenochrome suddenly started looking like the crazy crank user down the road, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They started looking really drawn and haggard and suddenly really bad, where they might have been just absolutely gorgeous. Suddenly they're ugly. And they're getting all these excuses out for why it's happening, medical diagnoses, but they're not getting their adrenochrome anymore, is what it is.
Back to the court. Where is it located?
It there is a point around Saturn where that you can hold an orbit without putting out energy. I
Mm.
forget the proper name for those points, but what they're called on Earth. But it's a specific point that it's in.
Lagrange point or something like that?
Yes, it's one of those points around Saturn where it's technically it's in orbit of Saturn, but it's pretty much staying in the same place,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in a time bubble.
As always.
As always, anything really major is in a time bubble. So it's, all times that there have been humans, there's been this court with these same judges. So they're used to our entire history. They know us. They know the other races in the solar system. They know the Jahami. They know the Draco bases. They know the raptors. They know the ant people. They know the fly people. They know all of these creatures that live here. And they're just enforcing the rules that can be enforced. Now, they also know that this solar system inside the Oort cloud is part of the Draco Empire. So there's rules that have to go with that too, and they are respecting that that's the local political situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the
But
Jahami.
from their
Yeah.
point of view, the Jahami that we call Marduk is the legal owner of Earth. Now,
And
once
he's a vassal to the Draco.
he's a vassal to the Draco,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So it would be American terms, you would have your city and your county That's the bigger area.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the state. The state is like the Jahami.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the American government, the federals. They are the Draco. Okay, now that's the way it operates. Really and truly, the Draco operate like a mafia.
Mm-hmm.
They run a protection racket. You pay them a percentage of your gross planetary product, whatever that is, and in exchange, they protect you from invaders and themselves. Baphomet was a rogue operator. He was literally like the guy who drives into town with a wagon, sets up shop selling snake oil. He was even a criminal from their point of view. In America, we call that sleazy. So, was he a powerful ET? Compared to us, yes. Compared to them, no.
Mm-hmm.
But because he didn't look like us and he came in and gave them what they wanted, they gave him what he wanted. Now, who's really worse in that situation?
Do you think he's the red dragon of the Bible,
No,
the book of Revelation? No?
no.
He's too small for that?
He's too small fry for that, yes.
Okay. Anyway, the Chahami, how did they
Shahami,
get arrested and everything?
the prosecution folks at the Galactic Court realized that that legal doctrine could be applied to them. And so they sent out arrest warrants that were served by my alter and several guardians. And before that, there was an amnesty offered that if they would help clean up the mess that they left here, they would be spared. They've left a horrible mess here.
Yeah, I know, but what would they have to do specifically?
They would have to. There's a list of things that have to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
Babylonian money magic has to be stopped. Slavery of all kinds has to be stopped. The automatic supremacy of either gender. It has to be a more egalitarian system where those who are actually better for something do it.
Like a meritocracy.
It has, yeah, we have to go to a meritocracy. There's going to be no more caste system where one family runs everything or any of that. I can give you the list for that. I wrote it down. Money magic, slavery, pecking order slavery, assuming that we had the right to basically rape the planet. But there were 5 or 6 things on the list.
Okay.
And they
refused.
The majority of them refused.
Mm-hmm.
There were 8 of them that said yes.
And how many were arrested?
All but those 8.
And how many were there?
There were 1,000.
Okay.
They were all of the Shahami who had been on Earth.
And they were all here on the ground, or?
They had all been here on the ground at some point during our history.
Okay.
They were in trouble for creating a slave race in several versions. Our fossil record of hominids, those are all their versions of attempting to create a species smart enough to do the work and stupid enough to not rebel. and they had lots of rebellions over the millennia. Humanity as an engineered race is almost 2 million years old. And they actually changed our DNA to make ours compatible with theirs. That's why we have a different number of chromosomes from other hominids. I'm sure I'm going to screw up this number. Apes have, I believe it's 48 chromosomes, where we have 46. Because they took our number 2 and number 3 and merged them into our new number 2, which would make the chromosome number match up with theirs. So a lot of people fuss and tell me, well, it wasn't this race, it was that race. It wasn't this race, it was that race. You know, I've heard the history of this part of the galaxy from 5 different ET races right now. And every one of them claims to have created us. Now, when you get them in a physical form and you check their DNA, the one that matches our chromosome count is the one that did it. So.
So they were offered an amnesty, and most of them turned it down, but 8. And
8.
What happened after that?
After that, I was picked up out of my bed, and I woke up in a council, and they told me that I was condemned to forever death. And they put me in a machine that came through the telepathy as the truth machine. And it showed what I am as a soul rather than my current body. And they started peeling altars off. And they had finished the second one when the Germans in space showed up. I later found out that the Draco Queen Mother had sent them, but they lost a ship. And I still to this day don't understand why they thought I was worth losing a ship for. But they did it. They took me out of the truth machine. They put me in region on one of their ships as they were bringing me home. And they returned me here. And the Shahami have not attacked me since. But the trials started after that. The council that had voted to kill me were the first ones in court together, basically like an arraignment, being told what their crimes were in preparation for defense. And they mooned the judges. They lifted their robes and presented their backsides to the judges. And the judges said contempt of court and blew them all up. It was a group of 13 of them, and those guys never even got a trial. The rest of them have gone through trials, and they've all been found guilty. Marduk pled guilty repentant, and he was removed from power and placed with a bomb in his head, and he lives in the tall white base under Pine Gap, Australia.
When was this? I mean, the Jahami trial.
Oh, gee.
Or it's hard to say the real time.
From my time period, they were in court. The 13 of them killed in July or August of 2018. Okay.
So the council is, I think you told me before that they were not Jahami fully.
No, they're not.
They were hybrids, and they supposedly were like the secret government, right?
The Jahami they didn't want to deal with the slaves themselves.
Okay.
So they created a step above us that was halfway between most of us and them.
Like
Those were the hybrids that they put in charge. Those are the people who are the royals. Those are the people who are the elites ever since forever. And they have Rh negative blood. And that's why that matters, is because they are hybrids. They are not Homo sapiens. And they're quite proud of being Homo capensis. Now, over the millennia, they have interbred with us. And so there are no pure Homo capensis left, as far as I know. They are all somewhere in between. Now, when they have interbred so much that they can't fulfill their function anymore, the Shahami come and restore that percentage.
So Homo capensis was a step down from Shahami.
Yeah,
and
in between.
Higher than Homo sapien. Okay.
Higher than Homo sapiens, but definitely below the Shahami.
Okay.
They were
the men of the old.
I don't think you would call them Nephilim. Nephilim would be a little bit higher.
Okay.
But they were definitely smarter. I don't think they were necessarily stronger. Now, they took from that class to create super soldiers. The Shahami did. The whole concept of super soldiers, it's all through our mythology. We call them demigods, we call them heroes, we call them
yeah, heroes, demigods. Hercules was one of them, right?
Hercules, Perseus, Theseus, Gilgamesh, Samson in the Bible.
Okay.
These are all children who were a gift from the gods, whichever god you had, that the family was sterile and they wanted a baby, so they prayed for it, and they ended up with this kid that didn't look like dad, that had all these strength powers and usually very white skin and bright eyes and very light hair, which was usually unusual for their area.
Right. Exactly. Like David, by the way. David was also a blonde, right? King David.
The description that came through to me was ruddy skin and that he was considered beautiful.
Right.
Okay. So, but he wasn't outrageously tall. In fact, he went through and killed people above a certain height. He was trying to get rid of the giants, like Goliath of Gath,
right,
and his brothers. There were still giants when he was king. He killed them all in whatever territory that he held sway over. I'm not sure the limits to his territory. That's why I put it that way.
So now that the council is gone, the Shahami that were, by the way, how do they look? Do they look like the Sumerian depictions with like beards, very pumped?
They are from 9 to 12 feet tall. The ones I interacted with had paper white skin, and they biofluoresced. When they had emotions, it would come across them like colors do on a squid or an octopus. They would change. You'd see reds and greens and yellows and golds. That was really a very pretty light show. They had really light hair. It was, in a lot of ways, they were basically like albinos. The hair they had was light colored, but it was like African hair.
Oh, okay.
It was woolly, and their beards were woolly, but this light blonde or white, light gray, and they were braiding them and putting beads in them. They're not bad looking people, they're just big. And I've never interacted with their women. I have no idea what they look like.
So the ones that were in court were the same type? They were all from the
Yeah.
same race?
They were all from the same family.
Mm-hmm.
They were all the royals. They were descendants of Anu, and they were descended from either Enki or Enlil, some from both. Ningish Zeta was descended from both, but he had made an amnesty agreement, so he was spared. Enki was spared. Um, there's one that we know her by her Chinese name.
Guan Yin?
Yes, Kuan Yin made the agreement to help fix the mess.
So the eight, those who were, you said, properly prosecuted, they were found guilty also, right?
They were all found guilty, the ones that were properly prosecuted, because they were guilty of creating a slave race, which is illegal. They were guilty of eating children, human children. They didn't care that they had the adults. They were able to convict on eating the children. They accepted sacrifice of children who were protesting. And several of them had conspired to destroy us rather than fix the mess.
Mm-hmm.
And that came out in court. A couple of them were so mad at my altar for serving them the arrest warrants that they kidnapped friends of mine, men friends of mine, and raped them and dumped them out in their front yard with them bleeding out. Both of them that told me about it made it to the hospital in time, but God, they thought they could intimidate my altar by torturing my friends. That's the level they're operating at.
Mm-hmm.
So I can give you those men's names, but I don't want to make them public.
Sure. So after that, they were all also taken into custody, those that did this, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they all knew that you sort of had a part in this.
They knew it was my altar that was the bailiff.
So technically it was you for them.
Technically it was me as far as they were concerned, because the entire consciousness was there. Yes. So I got left holding the bag.
So, okay, the eight that were left and agreed to sort of reform, I guess. Do you know what they're doing now?
Enki is working on cleaning the water supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, after all, right?
Yes, yeah, after all. Yeah, Poseidon.
The Lord of Water.
But you have to keep in mind he's also Loki. So he has to be watched. Yeah. You know, we understand that he is Odin, the All-Father, because he was the geneticist who created us, but at the same time, he is also Loki, the trickster.
Okay.
So you have to keep an eye on him. And there's a guardian assigned to making sure that he does what he promised to do. Kuan Yin, I have no idea what she's doing, but I wasn't put in charge of supervising her. Shiva is working on taking out the caste system and religious hatreds in India. I know from the media that I've seen, it looks like he's stirring the pot. I hope he knows what he's doing.
Okay.
You know, there's always super conservatives who don't want to change anything, and there's also always super liberals who want it changed yesterday. And I have the feeling that he's taking a long-term approach.
So the ones that were left, I mean the elites, They are
The
kind of
elites,
like,
the elites were the elites were the underlings that were told what to do, and if they didn't do it, they got a visit, and one of their kids would go missing, and they were not allowed to mourn the kid because it was an honor to feed the gods. They were used to being told what to do, and now their bosses are gone. So they had all these plans that were in motion. And for a couple of years, you could see the way they acted, that they didn't know what they were doing. And currently, they're enacting all the plans at once.
mm,
Still, they don't know what they're doing. They're learning as they go. And things are getting kind of chaotic.
right. Do they have a direct access to the Draco? I mean,
No.
someone like Simon Parks, I think, was talking about, for example, the Rothschilds meeting with the Draco and, having a council with them and so on and so forth.
Well, several people have said that.
Right.
It's possible that they met with an envoy. It's possible that the Draco want things stabilized.
Mhm.
It would be in their best interest. I mean, what do you do when a business changes ownership and you're the protection racket? Yeah, you're the owner and the protection racket people show up, and you're the new owner that doesn't know anything about the protection racket and all of a sudden is told, you have so many days to pay up. Yeah. There's a lot of chaos going on right now.
Mhm.
And they have not been in charge by themselves very long, so they're learning. And some of them, their solution is to kill off the slaves. And that's not going over well with the Galactic Authority. So there's resistance.
So by that system, by that legal system, we are to basically wake up by ourselves and clean up what we can.
Yeah, we are considered a primitive race and protected from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is going to come in and kill us all except us. Whoever's already here. Nobody is going to come in and rescue us from a situation that we have voted for. So the only way this mess is going to actually be cleaned up is if we do it. And all the pie in the sky and hopium and feel-good channeling isn't going to change that. We have to get off our asses and clean up our world ourselves. When I was in Shula on Mars, they said that every species has a set point at which they become fully telepathic. And that for humans on Earth, that level is reached at 9.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And the elites know this. And that's why the sudden urge, there's too many of you, too many of you, too many of you, because we are 2 generations from that at the birth rate that we had before. Now, what they're not paying attention to is that the first and second world are already below replacement. It's the third world that is going like nothing ever changed. So the percentages of who's where are changing. And it's creating a population vacuum. We have this, well, in America we call it cultural, but we have this long-standing historical bias towards a hierarchy. And the folks that have been traditionally at the bottom have forgotten how to think for themselves. A lot of things need to change, and the way we treat each other is number one among them. We have to start treating each other like we matter, all of us. And that hasn't been true before.